So the first question I have for everybody is, does everybody have Windows on their machine? Everyone's using Windows. Awesome. Perfect. That's a great start. So we're going to be using Perforce this month, and it's not very supportive on the Mac side. As much as through the game development career, you're going to be using PC. So just get comfortable with it. It is nice to know Mac. Yes, you can. Bless you. There is games out there for iPhone. You can develop for iOS, but most of the game development process that happens is on PC, on Windows. So we're going to be going over Perforce this month, and we're going to spend a little bit of time today going over that. But this is really a very professional grade tool. Everybody have Perforce downloaded by chance? I know you dabbled in a little bit in design tools. You may still have it installed on your machine. Cool. Well, now everybody has usernames. So your username is the first part of your full sail email, and your password sets a password. So let me pull up an agenda of pretty much what we're going to cover today in a nutshell. There's a lot to go over in the first meeting or in the first lecture. So really Perforce is where we're going to spend most of the time. So a little bit about myself. My name is Andrew O'Connor. I'm actually also a Full Sail graduate. So not too long ago, I was on the other side of the table, sitting in those seats, taking in all the knowledge and learning from the industry professionals. So I graduated from the Game Art program in 2011, right at the end of the year. I got an internship with the game design program. That turned into a lab instructor position. I worked on a few titles with a few coworkers, a few contract jobs. Got my name on a few ship titles and got myself into, a position where I'm running a class now and being able to give back some of the knowledge I know about Perforce. So I've been using this since about 2009, 2010. I really know Maya. That's really my wheelhouse. Maya, Photoshop, texturing, modeling, rigging, animating. That's my background. So scripting and Unity, this is all stuff that I've been picking up throughout the years. So definitely not the scripter that you'll get from an instructor like PGF2 or anything, but we will be doing a little bit of scripting in this class. It's good to know everything. Definitely as an artist, from an art perspective, if an artist knows programming, they're much better off than, say, an artist that doesn't. Same thing goes for a designer. If you know a little bit of art skills, you know a little bit of design skills, you can do the programming, you know the version control, you're going to be much better off. So that's really why it's really important to understand all these different topics. So throughout this month, this class, there's going to be 2 tracks. So I always want you to be thinking these 2 tracks are running side by side. There's a technical track to this class and a creative track. So a lot of the stuff we're going to be doing in Unity is going to support and show that you can actually build the level that you're going to design. So the creative track is we're going to be designing out a level, working through creating that process within some parameters that we're going to give you, and actually building out and having that creative idea to go forward. So you need the technical skills to actually develop what you're going to design. So here you'll see there's my Skype contact. If anyone wants to get a hold of me, FSO message and email is also acceptable. Usually those are the top 3. You can call my phone if you'd like to, but mostly those are the preferred contacts. Those are the quickest ways I'll get back to you. So these assignments right here are the progress through the class, and that's more of the creative side. That's the creative process that we're going to go through. So the first thing we're going to do, today we're going to read the creative vision and get an understanding of what the game is that we're designing, right? Anyone that may have read it already, we're designing a game that's called Scraps. So think of it as, my team, the people here with Project and Portfolio 2, Level Design, and Project and Portfolio 3. You're going to be working on this project for 3 months. So this team, we're the game production company, and you guys are producing the levels. You're cranking out the levels for this game. So think of it that way, and that's the process you're going through. So we're going to start out by coming up with concepts, coming up with ideas. So brainstorming a lot of different setups, a lot of different interactions, because in game design, that's what's important, right, is the interactions and the setups that the player is doing. We don't really care too much about the visuals, or if it's a little bit buggy, that's okay. We just focus on gameplay and interaction. Yes, functionality and player communication are top priorities, but really the interaction, the actions the player are doing is what's really important. That's where the design comes from. So we'll be coming up with a lot of ideas in the brainstorming. And then in the LDD, we're going to refine that even further. So take all those ideas, take all those setups and interactions we have and pick our best ones. Now put it in a cohesive level where the player has an objective, 2 major mechanics that you're going to use, and your smaller setups in between. And then from there, you're going to create a flow chart. And now your flow chart is how your mechanics, you're probably already familiar with this with GD1, probably had plenty of flow charting there and probably more than you want. But this is different. This isn't necessarily, showing the states of a game. This is more showing how your mechanics are going to flow from one area to the next. Where do you introduce a mechanic? Where do you allow the player to practice it? And where do they master that same mechanic? So you're going to be able to show just visually how the mechanics are going to lay out from one to the next. And then the map, the very final process, the very final step, that's just how it visually looks. That's just how everything is spaced out. That really is the very last step. If you go and try and make a map before you even know what your level is going to be, you're just going to be wasting your time. So that's really the last final step, is what is it visually going to look like? How do I get from the gas station to the bridge? What is in my way? What is visually, how does that look? And that's really where you're going to lay that out in Google Draw. So I really like to give you guys a whole big picture scenario before you jump in, so you're not just spitballing ideas and don't really understand where it's going. I want you to see the process from start to finish right now, right from the beginning. And that's the thing too. So in this class, it's completely individual. All the assignments you're going to be doing, all the work you're doing is individual. But when you move forward, same thing with level design. You're going to be working on your levels individually. But when you move forward into Project Portfolio 3, the last class before the associates block of the degree program, you're going to be putting your levels, to put your areas together as a team and creating one cohesive level. And you'll see a few examples throughout the month and show some progress of the students ahead of you and some past students. So you'll get to see some examples of where the bar is at and really how the level comes together as a whole. So any questions at all about that? Anybody have any questions about the assignments or anything that they saw on FSO? No? Already overwhelming you with information? So you'll also notice on FSO, all these assignments are numbered. That is for a reason. That's just so it's very easy and clear how you should handle these, right? The order you should go through. I know some classes you'll have, an assignment all the way at the top, but it's like something like this where it closes at the end. This is really just meant to start at the beginning and work your way down. That'll really give you the best result. And that way you'll also notice everything's open right now. So if you want to really just crank out this over the weekend, get your LDD completed, already start your flow chart, get your rough map already, blocked out, you'll be way ahead of the gang. So definitely, take that to an advantage if you'd like, but just know that option's there. Everything's open now. I'm not closing certain things and only opening it at certain times. Everything's open for you right away. All right, so now we're going to get into Perforce. Let me just close this. And when you go ahead and open it, you'll get this dialog box. Now, some of the stuff I'm going to go over is in the instructions, but I just want to point out some of the common questions I get and common little hiccups I see. So here you'll go ahead. Your username will be, again, it'll be the first part of your Full Sail email address. And the on-campus students, you guys, will be using this, the gdnperforce.fullsail.edu:1337. And everything for all my online students, it's going to be GDN resource. So it's the exact same thing except Perforce is resource. Alrighty, so when you're at this page, if you haven't created a workspace before, that's going to be the first thing you want to do. So you go ahead and click New, and now this window will pop up. So by default, Perforce gives you all this nonsense where it's basically just auto-creating this folder, and it's the name of the user.workpc. Some random number that they make up, and here's the name. We definitely recommend changing this to just your name. Don't change it to DAX. I know the instructions say they show an example, it's DAX. I don't know how many workspaces I've seen named DAX, but it's just your name goes here. So I would just create Andrew, and we also recommend don't putting it in your users folder. I've also seen, someone's user gets corrupted or they accidentally delete a user, they're using someone's computer, and now the user's gone, so this folder path is now corrupt. So we recommend doing this, just having your name and then your workspace root like that. This is just we just like to have a common practice for everyone, so you don't just say put it anywhere or name it whatever. This is just really understand that when you're creating a workspace, it's just a location on your computer.
It won't let me create a new workspace because it says no such user.
Once you are into Perforce, you'll notice you won't see this many folders as I see up here. I got all these up here. You'll just probably see you should only see the IND folder, IND229, and the scraps assets. You may have the peer evaluations, but that's probably some weird thing that we don't need anyways.
Yeah. I just got my folder.
All right, so you may be looking at so first thing I want to explain is the depot and the workspace tab. So the depot tab, anyone want to take a shot at what the depot is?
The server.
Yep, exactly. It's the server. That's the shared repository. Everybody's files get uploaded to the depot. Everyone sees the same thing on the depot. The workspace is that folder that we just created, right? That folder is just a path somewhere on your computer, and it holds this information. So we're just going to, everyone see the IND folder? Yes? In the depot? Cool. So you see it in here. Now you should see your month, 1605, and then you'll see your section number. So you guys on campus, you're section 0. So in there, you'll open that up and you see a compiled folder and a working folder. Everyone see that? See this structure? So first thing I'm going to explain, I'll explain the structure of the folders, and then I'll explain how to actually use Perforce, all right? So you'll see in here the section, right? So in here is compiled and working. In the compiled folder, this is where you're going to turn in your assignments. So all the assignments for Perforce, or all the assignments for this class are turned in Perforce. I'm doing that not to torture you, but to force you to get practice using Perforce this month. So the whole plan is, again, IPM. We'll learn this a little bit more next class on Thursday. We'll go over it a little bit more extensive, but introduce you to Perforce now in this class, let you get used to it, let you practice it in level design, use it again, and then really let you master it the following month in Project and Portfolio 3, and really just carry you on through the rest of the program and use it in Final Project as well. So we're really getting you introduced to it now. I know you really lightly dabbled with it in design tools, but you weren't connecting to a server, you weren't collaborating with other people, and you weren't like actually working on files. You were just modifying things and seeing them change, but not actually you were working on throughout the week. So the compiled folder is where you're going to turn in your assignments. The working folder down here, this is where you will actually create your Unity project, and you're going to be doing that today. It's due Friday, but it's a short assignment, and I want to have everybody have it completed and turned in by the end of lab. So it's a real quick assignment. It's just copying a project template, renaming it, and putting it in this proper folder. So you'll also notice in the IND content folder down here, this has a bunch of the assignments, because you'll see once we have Perforce access, I'm not using FSO anymore. I'm just saying look in the IND content folder on Perforce for instructions on this assignment. You'll see that through a lot. So down here you can see all the assignments right here, and they just link to Google Docs.
Yeah, I don't have a content folder.
You don't see it inside the IND folder?
No, we just have the 1605 folder.
Let me see if I can fix that. All your assignments will be located there, and we'll go back in there for a while throughout the month. In the scraps assets, the asset depot and the project template, two good things that we'll be definitely utilizing the next 3 months. So the project template, this is what you're actually going to be copying over and creating and setting up. So we've already created a character for you. We got some functionality. We got some trigger volumes in there. We have a turret. A lot of stuff already set up for you, so you guys can hit the ground running and start designing with it. That's really what we want to shortcut. We don't want you spending time, building a character or writing, actual like behavior scripts. We want you to actually focus on gameplay and the interaction. So we've provided you this template to get started with. So feel free to modify and change it any way you'd like to. This is the month to experiment. Don't change the play or anything. We'll get into more about what you can and cannot change. But really experiment and feel free to mess around with it, and always know that you have this project template to go back to. If something breaks on your own version, you always have this project template to copy over. So we talked a little bit about the depot, right? So the depot is the shared repository for everyone, and the workspace is just a folder structure on your computer. So one thing that you'll hear me say a lot this month, and I really like to utilize, is show in Explorer. So you have this option to just show in, right? You right click on any folder, show in Explorer. And all this does is going to pop up a File Explorer window and just show exactly where this file is. So it's the same exact thing, right? It's just a project structure, so I can open this up and navigate through here like I was just any other file on my computer. So if I want to add a file to Perforce, so say in 1605 I have my working folder, and here's this example. I want to go ahead and add mine in there. What I'm going to do is, first things what you guys are going to want to do before you go any further is before anyone's even submitted it, it's a good idea to just go ahead and right click on this folder and get latest revision. That way you'll copy this folder structure to your computer. You could also just grab it from the working folder or wherever you want at the time. But just once people start submitting work to the server, you don't want to just get the latest from this whole folder and copy everything. So go ahead and just copy it now and you'll get the folder structure. That way you can just show in Explorer. All right, and there's the Barack Obama example. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a new folder in here. All right, and then in here, I'm just going to create a text document. So this is part of the first setup assignment, is just getting your contact info in there and submitting a file to Perforce. Contact info. And this is similar to what you had already done in Design Tools, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and throw my Skype contact in there.
What do we name the folder?
Just your last name, first name. Last name underscore first name. All right, save that file. All right, so now in my Workspace tab, you'll see this folder here, right? And now inside there, there's that new file, and you'll notice that icon. So the icons are real important with Perforce. I like to use them really as a shortcut, a visual shortcut to tell what files need to be changed, or what files need to be added, or what ones are different, et cetera, et cetera. So you'll see, I have it linked in the assignment, but let me go ahead and pull it up. This Perforce user guide. Overall, this entire manual is really nice, but I really like it just for the icons specifically. Perforce icons, about P4V icons. So here it'll basically explain what every single one means. So right, this white piece of paper that I just saw over here, right, that one right there, that means so many tabs. That means that the file is in my workspace, but not in the depot. You'll see this one too, very common. That the piece of paper with the lines and the green dot in the corner, the file is synced to the head revision. So that means you have the most recent version of that file. So review this. If you see some weird symbol on a file, always know that you have like this to look up what that actually means. A red check mark means that you've checked out the file. A blue check mark means someone else has. And the clear difference, the red one's on the left-hand side, the blue one's on the right-hand side. So not like really knowledge you need to understand to be successful, but just good document to have and just go back to when you'll see, because at first you'll see like, what does this really weird yellow thing mean? You'll probably want to look that up, the question mark. Some ones that you may not see often, red X, if things are marked for delete, you definitely want to stay, wait a minute, what's going on? Because a real common mistake I see is, like I said, you get latest, but now accidentally you have your peers' work on your computer, and you're like, oh, I don't want Bob's and Joe's and Susie's project on my computer, so they would come to Perforce and mark it for delete. Well, if I go ahead and mark for delete, what is that going to do? That's actually going to delete it from the server. So anytime you want to delete something, you just come to your actual File Explorer and delete it from here. But besides that tangent, now that I have this contact info here, I want to add this to the server, right? So if I right click on it, you have a lot of options, right? But there's, a lot of up here is really where most of the meat and potatoes is, where most of the checkout, add, delete, submit right here. This is really the range you want to be in for most things. So I'm just going to go ahead and add this file to the depot. And this window will pop up. This is just stating what change list is going to be added to. Here, this looks like a text box where you could type, but this is just showing the change list description. So if I've already wrote something in this default window, it'll show it here. So just hit OK. on that, and now you'll notice again, that red plus, right? The icon has changed. And now in the pending tab, I'll explain this if anyone doesn't have this up. In here, you'll see I now have a file in my change list, right? So now I have a file there. I right click on it and submit. All right, this little window will come up. You're probably already familiar doing this from Design Tools. So just bless you. So with your change list, it's really important to actually put a lot of detail in there. Don't just write something silly like update or submitting work. Like really explain what it is you're doing, so that way when you have like a long list, here's like an example.
So how did you get the file to show up on the?
So once you create it, and how do you get the file to show up on the workspace? So once you create the file here. Once you create the file, it should just show up in your workspace. You're not getting anything there. You can't add an empty file, so that's why you'll see like in the compiled folder right now. In order to get this folder structure, I have to add basically blank text files to get this folder structure. So that's why you have to add a file in there to just submit your folder structure. So let's see if anyone. All right, I got to see a few in there already. Good. Already adding some in there. So this folder that you just created, this is where you're going to copy the project template into. All right, so we're going to get to that later, but let's go over a little bit more about Perforce itself and all the features that it offers. So we just added a file, right? So if we want to make changes to that, right, we can just check it out. Right now the file is checked out. I can add something. Say I want to add my email address. Save it. All right, so it says 1 of 1. So now it's still in my change list. Now I submit. Adding email address. All right, and now it says 2 of 2. Right, so that shows both versions of the file. Here in my history, it's going to show me both versions of the file, right? When I added it here and when I modified it there. So that's checking out, right? So there's 2 workflows that I'm going to show you. Just how to check out your work, make changes, and submit. Everyone should be fairly similar with that. I know you did that a little bit. We're going to definitely test it out this month, but that's one workflow you can take, right? You have a file you want to change. Say I want to change this script. I'm going to go to Perforce. I'm going to check it out. Go into Visual Studios or Mono Develop, make changes to my script, basically just like I did with the text document. Come back to Perforce, and then it'll be in your change list, and then submit. So here you'll see this filter. So this little window over here, and this may happen to you sometimes where it's like this, and you're like, where did it go? It's gone. And you go, if you try and open it up. So if you go to View, this is how you can get that window to come up. You're like, it's not coming up. That's because it's snapped against there. So just drag it over. So this pending list and history, these two are really my go-tos. I always have these open all the time. And if you don't have a filter in here, you'll basically see every single change list ever made. Basically they're all numbered, and you'll see them all sorted by number. I really like to have just user, and you hit that drop down there, you go current user, workspace, current workspace. That way you know everything that's just this computer, that's just your user. And you should only ever see this change list. If you start to see multiple change lists building up, stop. Take a second to say what's going on. Why do I have so many files here? So say another example, I want to check out this file and work on it again. All right, but now I realize, oh crap, that wasn't the file I want. I wanted to get a different file. So I can submit this, right? I could just submit this as a third version with no changes. That's one option to do. But there's another thing you can do to basically back something out of a change list, to pretty much undo. So what you can do, if I right click on this, anybody have any guesses when I leave that menu up? What would? Yep, so revert unchanged files is going to revert anything that was not changed at all. So revert files will just grab everything. Revert unchanged will revert things that have no modifications to them. Question?
So his like entire bar isn't showing up, like it's all grayed out. Like I was trying to help him add the text file.
What bar? This bar?
The add, checkout, delete.
Up here?
Yeah.
So when you select files, it should give you options to whatever.
Yeah, I know all of it's gone. It's
All right.
all great.
So now that you have your folder, when we go into lab and we actually submit the project template, that's where you're going to be doing it. So, right, so that's what we did. I just talked, question? You have a problem making a workspace? Alrighty. All right, so we talked a little bit already about reverting, right? If you get a file into a change list that you don't want there, you can revert them to back them out. Use that as your undo. And also, I definitely mentioned already marking for delete, right? So if you want to delete a file, say I go ahead and get all of these, get latest revision, right? So I get the latest. Now if I show an Explorer, right, now I open up here, I have everybody's contact info. But I say, crap, I didn't want everybody's, I just wanted the Andrews. I want to get rid of everybody else. Well, I don't come to Perforce and mark these for delete. If I'll keep this workspace tab open so you can see, if I go over here and just delete all these other ones, right, now I just have the 2 Andrews. Now I come over here in the workspace and I hit refresh, all the other ones are gone and they're just there. So that's how you delete files off your computer. You don't ever want to come to here and mark for delete because you're going to delete it off the depot. No matter what tab you're on, it's going to be deleted off the depot if you're deleting from Perforce.
What happens like then if somebody accidentally deletes your work then?
Well, Perforce we can always go back to it, but it's always an extra hoop you have to jump through, right? And you don't want that to happen. So as long as you understand, like mark for delete here is deleting from the depot, that usually tends to not happen as nearly as often. Question?
Would you recommend backing up your files then?
Like on another, so would you recommend backing up files like on like?
Once you've submitted them, you can also save another copy.
Sure, yeah, when you submit them, I like to recommend, especially, that's a really great question. I also like to recommend, even if you just, before you even mess with Perforce, say I'm working on my Unity project for like an hour and I want to submit it to Perforce, but I'm afraid maybe I'm going to click the wrong thing and all my work's going to be gone. You can copy it to even like the desktop or your documents, have a backup of your Unity project, then submit it. Yeah, but usually like a good practice to get into is like zip up your Unity project like every other day, every 2 days or so, and put it somewhere safe, like flash drive, Dropbox, Google Drive, somewhere safe as a backup. Never a bad thing. So let's see. So get latest revision versus get revision. So if I go back to the depot here, great, this is a good segue here. So now I have these two working, just these two here, right? Mine and then Andrew Gorham's. So if I go ahead and get latest revision on here, it should, in theory, get back those files, right? Oh, it said 1 file added. That didn't work. Because it added 1. Okay, that's because someone added it since I deleted. See, it just added William Rooks. It didn't add everybody. So now if I go back to the depot and I'm like, get latest, no files updated. What the hell? How come it's not updating? Well, if you look over here in Perforce, these numbers here, 2 of 2, that's saying that I already have these files, but I deleted them because I didn't want them. But how do I get them again, right? Again, I go to here, get latest, it doesn't work. So you'll notice this other option down here, get revision, with the 3 dots. If you click on this gives you a lot more control and power of what revision you're actually getting, right? So you can specify it based on change list number, revision number, a date and time. So you say you're working on your project and like, all right, I know this worked at Wednesday at 8:30. It was working. Now it's Thursday at 9 a.m. and it's broken. I'm going to get the revision of Wednesday at 8:30. You can get it exactly how it was at that point. So you can really get a lot of control. So I'm just going to do get latest for now. But down here you have this force operation. So I'm going to check this on. And pretty much it says replace file even if you've already have the revision specified. So Perforce thinks I have it. And what this is going to do is basically brute force, copy everything again no matter what. Just copy everything over. So now you'll see 11 files updated, right? Now they're all back over here. So that's get revision. That's a little bit more control and flexibility, but definitely useful when you need to force something. And it's a good way to test your work too. Like if you submit your work to Perforce and it works fine, a good way to double check is get a revision and force it so you're getting exactly whatever's on the server copied to your computer. It's a really good way to test. All right, so I'm going to open up the project template. Should be... So you guys probably want to go ahead and grab the project template, or this whole Scraps assets is real big. This asset depot is like 3 or 4 gigs of just assets alone. So it may be a lot to get on campus, but you at least want to get the project template for now. You'll need that for lab. But while this is opening, you'll see in the where is it? In the IND content folder, which it should.
Get it, you mean check it out, right?
No, just get latest. So this is the get latest to copy it to your computer. When would you want to check out a file? Yep, exactly. So we don't want to change it. We just want to grab it, grab a copy, and we're going to move it to our own location. So yeah, the pending the tab is really nice because you always want to have just this default change list. When you see them build up, you want to figure out what those files are, if they need to be submitted or if you accidentally added them, and then work from there. In the history tab, this one's really nice too, so you can really see when I was talking about the description and why it's important to add a nice long lengthy list. You'll see that when you have long changes like this, you know exactly what that description was, right? And you can look back through and say, all right, I wanted to get here. So some of these are definitely pretty poor, right? But this is only so much guiding you can do before you have to set them free. But really, this is really good activity, right? This was one student last month that had really good activity. Definitely, like you can tell, he was using Perforce a lot. So really try and stick to that. Don't just use it as a minimal amount, right? Like some of these where they're using it, they're understanding it, but there's a few more that are definitely just applying, submitting changes every half hour, every hour, making sure your work is safe. Question? Yeah, so the question is, can you use Perforce on another computer? Yes, you can. And you can collaborate with your other machine. That's a good practice to basically collaborate with someone else, but you're collaborating with your own computer. The only thing you'd have to do for that is you create a workspace on that machine, and they're different, right? So they're going to be named differently. You want them to be unique, and Perforce won't even let you have them be different from each other. So yeah, you'll just create 2 separate workspaces to work on another computer. Do you have another question?
Yeah, just mine. I was really about to say just have or try to get the version project template instead of 9%.
Oh, and then it's turned over? Cool. Alrighty, so my Unity looks real weird on this monitor, so let me go to this. So way out of like tall. Move this here. Alrighty, so you'll see in here, let me go back to Perforce quick. You'll see in Perforce, in the content, there's this README file. So this is really nice because this will explain exactly all the functionality we have included in here, what exactly you can do and what you can start with. And then here's all the controls and everything you need to know down here. So make sure you read through this just to get an understanding of how to play around. And really this first week and this first class, take some time to just experiment and play around with the character, get a sense of the feel, what he can do. So we have this grab null on the character where you can pick up objects, and you can pick them up with left click and right click to throw them. So this is what you're going to be given to design around, right? So this is third person character, has some platforming ability. If you go down here in this little bunker, you'll see this turret down here. So there's some stuff we've already provided for you. So take a little bit of time to understand what it is that we want you to be designing around. Because a really great designer is not going to say, so a lot of very common things. So with Scraps, it's a linear type game, linear gameplay. A lot of people are like, well, I want to make a sandbox game. Or I want to make a sandbox level. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Like, but I want to. And I'm like, no, don't do that. But they do it anyways. And they're just trying to shoehorn their design into what we've already given. But a really great designer will just take what's been given to them and make the best of what's there, right? Really just take this and design around scraps. When you read the creative vision, design around what's been given to you. Don't just say, oh, I got this idea and I'm going to make it work. Really try and just go with what's been given to you and make the best of it. Same thing like when you're out in the industry, like your first job is a SpongeBob game or like a Barbie horse adventure game. It doesn't matter, man. You're working on a game. Who cares? So at that,
You played Barbie Horse Adventure.
no, but I've played plenty of the Lego games and the SpongeBob game and like movie games, and I just, as a designer, it's a really good grasp to play all kinds of games, right? So if you only play League of Legends, or if you only play a shooter, or you only play a certain type of genre of game, it's good to play games, but you really want to expand your horizons. A few people that I work with, they really try and play like games they absolutely hate or something they would never find themselves playing for like 1 or 2 hours a week. Some title that's successful in some way, but not necessarily um, not necessarily their cup of tea. So it's a good idea just to get that. So when you get put on projects like that, you're still able to find the creative stuff to do in there. So this is the danger zone scene. In the scenes here, we have the danger zone, which I'm in right now. This is pretty much like a showcase of everything, mostly everything that the project has to offer. And there's this other scene in here called the hub. And I think the assignment may say LD hub. That was a change we made since last month, so I apologize. I'm going to change that. But this is the hub, right? This is where we're going to be starting out. And if we go ahead and add in our other scenes, right, because with Unity 5.3, super awesome, helpful ability to have multi-scene editing. Let me go ahead and just shortcut this. So my layout's weird. Let me just go back to the default so it makes sense to everybody, see what you're used to seeing. Even though my window's a little small. So in the hub itself, in the hub level, we have, where is it? The SCore level manager, right? So this is how we actually can test out our other levels, or how we can make builds to our other levels. But if we go ahead and drag these in here, drag and drop these in here, right? So now we have our 4 little platforms. This is where these four scenes is where you're going to be working on 4 different assignments throughout the class. So this should be what you have for the playground assignment, and then you'll be making a build from there. So you'll see this ASCore level manager. You'll come in here and change however many scenes you want to build, right? So we want 4. So this will populate, and now you have to write in the names. I don't think he didn't change that yet. So you would just type in the names of these scenes, but we'll go over that a little bit more. I just wanted to get you understanding of this is the project template.
I thought you said that we were all working on like the same thing, or
You're all given this same design. You're all given scraps.
like separate games.
Well, right now you're just going to be like each one of these. Let me pull up an example. We'll give you a better idea of what those platforms will be. Each one of these is just this class is really like a showcase that you know how and you can build a level. So I can set you to move forward and actually go into Unity and build this as a team. But everyone's going to be having their own version of the project template. It's not like everyone's working on the same project just yet. Everyone has their own for right now, but everyone still has the same design. So this was one students from last month. I asked them to put this together for me. Definitely has had some good work in here. Definitely not like everything wasn't 100% A+, but it worked for what he had. So over here, this is the visuals and setting assignment. So he has this, basically this was an image that was given to him and he recreated it. That was his submission there. And then over here is the wind turbine. You can get those, turn those on. I'm not going to spoil too much. But this is just a sense of, he went above and beyond totally, right? You saw in there these small little platforms. He actually went and like put more effort than was required. But this is everything that you'll learn this month. And I'll throw this up there so you can go around and mess around with everything he's done in here. But these are pretty much each week. One of these is an assignment. So for the playground, you're gonna have to make a build of these platforms here, and you'll see that in the assignment again. So you'll type in here, you'll go through and type in the names of the scenes you want to load. So what the script is actually doing, I don't want to just say like type this in and you not actually know what it's doing. This script is just loading these scenes, whatever's plugged in there, on play. So and this is for a build when you actually make an exe. So you'll notice the script isn't super long, so don't be afraid to, if you're like seeing a script over and over again, just open it up and try and just, you don't have to change it or break it or anything, just try and read it and see what it's doing, right? So if the application is editor, right, if for each stream name, load that scene, right? That's all it's doing, is just loading those scenes. So once you have your scenes in your level manager there, and then you also have them in your build settings, right? So you go to your build settings, and now make sure you have, you need to have the hub as well, right? So if you have all of them open, you can very easily just hit add open scenes, and it'll add the hub and your 4 scenes in there, right? So if I go ahead and do this real quick, let me just add these. And you have to make sure these are spelled right. We're working on getting drag and drop functionality in here, but it's not the easiest thing to do with a scene file. All right, so this is basically the playground assignment. Once you have this in here and you have these in, you go ahead and make a build. And now you have to make sure you're putting this in the right spot, right? So I would go ahead to perforce, IND, section 0, compiled, playground. And if you can actually make a folder right in here, I'm going to call this. This is part of the playground, I should say, because the other part is we actually need to add our project to Perforce. So there, and I'm going to just call this save the exe. It should build. Shouldn't take too long, right? It's just real simple scenes. Any questions up until this point?
I don't know how you opened up that.
The build settings?
I totally missed that part.
Oh, it's a file?
Well, that I get. I mean, like,
Oh.
even to get to the Unity portion.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, we have the assets and stuff, but how do we put them?
Gotcha. Okay, that's a good question. I didn't quite cover that, but that's good. I just wanted you to pay attention for that before you were mess around in Unity. So let me just see if my build worked real quick. Definitely test it before I submit it to Perforce. Because yeah, everything I just did there was in the project template. You don't want to do that. You want to first go ahead and create your copy of it, right? So what you'll do is go into Perforce. All right, so you have your project template, right? Show this in Explorer. So here's your project template. Copy this. And now go wherever that working folder was, right? So, section 0, working. Here's me. And paste the project template in there. And then go ahead and rename it once it's done. Yeah, it's because Unity was open. And if you guys do this, you should do this before. If you do this before you open it in Unity, you won't have a library folder, which is good. We don't want a library folder on Perforce, specifically. So let me go, I copied my project template, and I do. So I'm going to delete these. You shouldn't have these in here. Whoops. That was the assets. That's bad. So library, temp. You're going to need these on your computer, but you don't want these on Perforce. Does anyone want to take a shot in the dark as to why you don't want those files on Perforce? Not quite. That's a good guess. That's a good guess. So the library folder that Unity creates, so I'm going to go ahead and go back and name this. So make sure you rename your project template to just.
Or is it because you wouldn't have access to them then?
Exactly. Do you know what those library files do? Because I sure don't. Yeah, me neither. But what Unity does is Unity needs those files to be constantly changing, right? With Unity or with Perforce, when things aren't checked out, they're marked as read-only. So Unity goes to mess with those, Perforce says no, and Unity just crashes. So it just, like the project just won't open. If you add your library folder accidentally to Perforce, your project just will not open. And it's just a matter of just deleting that folder from Perforce and going ahead and opening it. So that's what you want to do. Sorry if I shortcutted, but I wanted you to pay attention first before you actually went around and tried to follow along. Because this stuff you'll actually do this portion when we get to lab. So here you'll go ahead and change the name of that, and now you'll see over there, over in Perforce. If I go back to my working folder, wrong month.
What did you want us to rename the project template as?
Just last name, first name, project. So now in here, right, you have all these files. So now you can go ahead, if your files are just like this, you can just go ahead and add this. But watch what happens when I try and open this in Perforce or in Unity, right? So I just go to the assets, go to the scenes, and open up the hub. Right, now it's a fresh scene, so the project is loading, but let me go back out. And now you'll see it already has created this library and temp folder, right? They're immediately back. It's like a virus. It just won't go away. So you can delete them, but then when you open up Unity, they're just going to repopulate, and that's good. You can use that to your advantage. So they're going to be on your computer. That's totally normal. You don't want them to be on Perforce because those are read-only, and Perforce needs access to those.
We were supposed to submit it to the depot, right? The project template.
Yeah, so you will be submitting your version of your project into your working folder. That's where you're going to submit the project that you're going to be working on throughout the month. And then in the compile, that's where you're going to turn in your actual assignments. All right, so I have. Does everybody feel like they have an understanding of checking out and adding a file and to delete? Very basic. If you were to modify a file, right? If you were to modify a script, you would check it out, change it, and then submit it. Because I want to make sure that I'm going to go over something that's a little bit more advanced. It's super helpful, but it can cause some issues if you don't understand what you're doing. So, question?
I have my.
All right, so I'm going to open up another project. This is one I had previously set up, just so I can make some changes. And this is a really good habit to get into. I really like to do this this way. Once you have something on Perforce, I like to just come right to the scenes folder or the scene itself and double click on it right from Perforce, and it'll open up Unity. So that's a good way to say you have multiple projects. Like if you have the project template and your copy, maybe you accidentally are working in the wrong one. Right, so it's a good idea to open it up from Perforce so you know exactly what you changed. All right, so what I'm going to cover now is what's called reconcile offline work. So you need to take this with a grain of salt, because what I'm going to explain to you is going to be one of a huge time saver. And like personally, I think, once you develop a workflow and a skill set that's broad enough that you feel confident to work with Perforce and Unity together, if you can get the two pieces of software to communicate as well as just with your own computer, if you can do that, you're going to be in a really great place to utilize reconcile offline work. Because one thing to note about Perforce is these meta files, right? Like, what the hell are all these meta files, you might be saying to yourself? Well, every single file that Unity creates brings this little meta file along with it. So yes, you can check out a script and work on it, but you have to make sure you're checking out the meta file with it, right? So you can add a material just by right-click mark for add, but make sure you check in the meta file as well. So it just becomes this little time-consuming, tedious task where, yes, it's good practice to get in to check out your files. I'm not saying to not do that ever again, especially when you're collaborating. If say one person, I'm saying, all right, I'm going to change the player script, I'm going to check it out and probably lock it so no one else can even touch it. Still the same workflow to get into, but reconciling is just a good understanding of this tool even further. So I'm going to go into Unity, and one thing to point out, I haven't checked out anything yet, right? I'm just in the level right now. So what I'm going to do, I was messing around with this wall the other day. I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate it. So, put one over here. Say I want to go ahead and create a new material. So go to my materials folder. Let's call this May test. Oh, new material. All right, and let's throw a color on this. Sure, that's fine. And let's put this on here. Let's say I also want to write a script. Why not? Because scripting is everyone's favorite, right? Yes? No? Scripting's amazing.
As long as it's not cable.
Okay, that's fair. So now let's go ahead and create a new script.
Did he ever?
Let's just go ahead and open it just to make sure that there's something in there. Let's just throw a comment in here. Why not? Let's save that. All right, so I made a few changes to my project, right? That was just to simulate you're working on your project, right? I created this asset, moved in my scene, I created a new material, and I created this new script, right? All inside Unity, never in Perforce. So now what I want to do is I want to make those changes. And now it's important that I understand where I was doing that from. So it's a good habit to get into. So this test script was in this entry. I put it in this entryway folder. The material, hopefully I put it in the materials folder. Yes, that's good. All right, so I have material in the materials folder, a scene in the scenes folder, and and that script in this entryway folder. So now if I come back to Perforce, I want to add my files to the project. So what I can do is what's called reconcile offline work. And now what this is actually doing is it's going to scan my workspace or whatever folder I select. So if I scan the scenes folder, if I right click on the scenes folder and reconcile offline work, what it's going to do is look at my computer and look at this folder or the depot and look for any differences. If there's any new files, it's going to automatically mark them for add. If there's any files that have already existed but are being changed or modified, it's going to check those out. If any files are missing, it's going to mark them for delete. So you really have to understand what reconciling offline work is doing to utilize it. That's why I have a few instructors that say that you guys shouldn't even learn this. You shouldn't even be able, you should be forced to just check things in and out. But I want to be able to give this knowledge to you about what is happening. Right, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm on the scenes file, the scenes folder. I'm going to go ahead and reconcile offline work. So you'll notice here, this window will come up, and it looks like I had a change to my entryway that I hadn't yet submitted to Perforce that I've been working on. So this window comes up, and again, like I just mentioned, you see this is broken up into 3 areas, and here's those symbols again, right? Modified files, things that aren't there that are now being checked out, files not in the depot, so things that are being marked for add, and then things that are deleted, right? So nothing there. So it's just finding those scenes. I'm just going to go ahead and hit cancel. So that was when I reconciled from the scenes folder. If I reconcile from somewhere else, that's where it's going to do that scan and do that comparison. So anyone want to take a shot in the dark? If I go all the way up to the very root folder and I try and reconcile offline work, what's going to happen? Yeah, what are those files? You're totally right. It's a bunch of files. It's an absurd number of files, but what are those? Well, I already have my project on Perforce, right? I already have my assets and project settings. But let's just go ahead and show this in Explorer, because you're totally right. When you say a bunch of files, you're correct. Let's look inside that project. Let's compare the project to what's in Perforce. Let me go to the depot so I don't throw you off. What do you guys notice? It's the difference between this folder here and this one over here.
The C# stuff and then the library and temp.
Exactly, right? So you got all these C#. This is what runs Visual Studios, like this project down here. This is what runs the IntelliSense in Visual Studios. So if you don't have these, or if these are also on the server, it'd be basically like trying to write script in Notepad, which is not fun. So that's what controls the IntelliSense if these get added to the project. But yes, the library and the temp folder, and I had said that you don't want these on the server, right? You don't want these on there. So if I reconcile from up here, it's going to scan all of that. So you never want to reconcile from the root of your project. Always reconcile from where you've made changes. And this is really important when you get into a team setting. If you made a change to a few scripts, reconcile from the scripts folder. Don't do it from some other area that someone else is already working. So I'm going to go ahead and do it from my assets folder. This isn't a great habit to get into. You'll notice here when I go through the month, I actually create like rigid body experiments or visuals and setting or wind turbine experiment. I actually create a folder for the assignment. So then you can go ahead and put all your, say all the stuff you need for the wind turbine right here. So when you make a change, you just reconcile this folder. But let's see what happens when I do it from the assets folder itself. This may take a little bit longer, right? Because it's scanning every single file and looking for differences. So there we go. So there it found, again, those are the scenes I found modified. Here's some decals. I was screwing around with the decal package that I want to give you guys. But here's that new stuff, right? So let's just uncheck all this so you're not. This is the stuff we just changed right down here. So these 4, right? I modified my scene. I added that script, scene.unity, and a new scene. Interesting. Oh, that's a decal. Okay, so it's with the decal system. So that's nothing I just did. So I modified or I added this file and it's checking these out. So when I go ahead and hit reconcile, right, I'm just going to do it for the files I just created. I have that material also, right? So I have the material and the script. You'll see in my change list, right? So these files are checked out and now these ones are marked for add. Same exact process. We got to the same point, except we didn't have to actually check anything out. So don't do this all the time, but know and understand that this is useful. So can anyone tell me how this could be super destructive? What are the bad things that could come from this?
Uploading a crap ton of files, or just overloading the whole system or something like that?
No, not quite. Really, the issue that you run into with a workflow like this is, say, this is more of a collaborative experience, but it can definitely happen to where, say we're on a team together, and I'm like, all right, I just submitted my work to the depot, go ahead and get it. Well, normally you would just go to the depot and get latest revision. But what does get latest revision do? Anybody know?
Pull whatever they did, like however updated their specific workshop or workplace file would be.
It's the what? Yeah, You're close, yeah. So get latest revision is taking the depot and copying it over to your workspace. So if you make a bunch of changes on your computer and you're planning on reconciling your offline work that way, but then someone says to you, oh, go ahead and get the latest of the project, and you do, all that work you just did is now completely wiped away and gone because you are basically working on read-only files. So it's not a habit you should get into, but just understand, if you understand what it's doing and the workflow you need to utilize to make it feasible for you, it will be beneficial for you. So getting latest is copying the depot to your workspace. So if you have a bunch of changes there that haven't been communicated to Perforce, they're going to be completely wiped away. So always, if you're going to go forward with that, always make sure that you would reconcile your offline work first, and then you go ahead to do the get latest revision. So the reason why we're showing you the reconciling offline work is these meta files, because I personally know it's a lot of work and it's almost a chore just to manage them, as long as you're also managing the files themselves. So you can, if you feel that it's, you don't want to just bomb a bunch of your work, and I'm not saying it happens all the time. It's just I see students where it's like, I'm not going to use Perforce for a week, and then I'm going to submit on Sunday night, and now everything's gone. So if you submit to Perforce every half hour or every hour, even if you do lose your work, it's only a small chunk, right? It's much easier to make up, an hour worth of work than an entire day or an entire week. That's just, you're just going to stress yourself out like that. So really just be active and make sure you're submitting your work often. So yeah, and from there you just go ahead and submit like you normally would. So I really just hope you guys can understand that it is useful, right? But you have to understand. First, you have to understand what checking out is doing, and basically marking for add, which I think we all can agree we can understand that concept. And now reconciling is just doing doing that middle step for you. It's scanning for it and checking them out and adding and marking for delete. Then you just hit the submit. I think that's mostly all of Perforce in a nutshell. I know that's getting blasted trying to drink through a fire hose, but this video will definitely be recorded, and I'll post it in your class as well. If you ever want to refer back to it, some of the concepts and principles. And then, when we work through the playground, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me or ask one of your peers, and we can definitely go over just to make sure these concepts are starting to be built upon in the first week. I have a question from an online student. It says, can you change the files after getting the revision? After getting the revision and they still work? Can you change the files after getting the revision?
I guess that's basically like, if you get a revision from somebody else's work, you would, I guess, then still have to check out that file if you wanted to change it, right?
Yeah, if you wanted, like, if you're like collaborating on a file, or if you're saying that, like that example I was saying, to where you have files and then someone's telling you to update. The first thing you'd want to do is reconcile your work, get it on the server, and then get the latest. And then you can go about modifying files from there. Does that answer your question? Or does that answer what you were saying?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
I'm just trying to make sense of what they were saying.
Yeah. Okay. He's saying yes. Yeah. All right. I think that was what you had read